Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Harvard Alumni for Global Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat Series. Today is a kickoff event for what will be a very exciting series featuring senior leaders of organizations serving women and girls from around the world. My name is Barbara Moreno-Paschal, and I am a board member of GlobalWE and chair of the Connect Initiative, which connects members of the Harvard University community and friends with organizations leading the way globally for women's empowerment in the arts, social services, education, health, economic development, entrepreneurship, policy, STEM, and several other fields. Today, we are thrilled to launch the Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat series with leaders from BRAC and BRAC USA, the North American affiliate of BRAC, who will share their important work creating opportunities for women in poverty. There will also be an opportunity to ask questions of these amazing leaders later in the program. Please note that this event is being recorded. We ask that you turn off your videos and mute your microphones at this time. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce GlobalWE President Sajida Shroff, who will introduce our speakers and moderate today's discussion. Sajida, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you again to the Connect team for doing such a fabulous job getting us here today. Thank you all for joining us from literally around the world. It is so wonderful to see all of you here for the launch of this exciting new series. My name is Sajida Shroff, and I'm privileged to be the president of Harvard GlobalWE. Harvard Global Women's Empowerment is a shared interest group, or SIG, of the Harvard Alumni Association. We are dedicated to the empowerment of women through education, dialogue, and connection among individuals working for women's rights and freedoms worldwide. We highlight and raise awareness about issues concerning women's empowerment worldwide, including but not limited to education, political rights, freedom from violence, women's health, and economic empowerment. If this is your first GlobalWE event, welcome. For attendees who have joined us before, welcome back. We're excited to have everyone here. Today's event is the first in a series that will feature dialogues with senior leaders of organizations serving women and girls worldwide. We hope that you enjoy today's discussion featuring BRAC and BRAC USA and become a member or friend of Harvard GlobalWE. As a reminder, we are recording today's session and will post it on GlobalWE's social media platforms. It is now my pleasure to welcome our speakers for today's program. First, let me introduce you to Donella Repier. She is President and CEO of BRAC USA. Donella brings with her more than 30 years of leadership experience in finance, fundraising, and strengthening and scaling nonprofit organizations. Donella is also a fellow alum. She is an alum of the Harvard Business School and held senior leadership roles at Harvard University, including Vice President for Alumni Affairs and Development and Chief Financial Officer for Harvard Business School. Welcome, Donella, and thank you again for being here. We also have the privilege of having with us today Rosina Huck. Rosina is Program Head of BRAC's Ultra Pro Graduation Initiative. She possesses over 18 years of proven experience in international development, having had a direct hand in building and scaling BRAC's flagship graduation program, which led to the BRAC-inspired, globally known graduation approach, also commonly referred to as economic inclusion. She has also built thematic expertise in the areas of climate change adaptation, disability inclusion, humanitarian response, urban, and gender. Thank you to Donella and Rosina. Welcome again, and thank you for being here today, for joining us to launch the GlobalWE Connect Women's Empowerment Fireside Chat series. Donella and Rosina will first give us a presentation about the vitally important work BRAC is doing to create opportunities for women in poverty. Next, we will have a question and answer session, first with moderated questions, and then with your questions. As a reminder to our attendees, please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A feature or the chat function, or by raising your hand. Our team will bundle the questions and we will ask them after the moderated questions. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. Donella and Rosina, over to you. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's such a treat to be here and to be with this group and to be kicking off the fireside chat. and really terrific to reconnect with Harvard. So I'm going to give a very brief overview about BRAC because I imagine many of you have not are not aware of us. And so let me give you a little bit about the BRAC story. So BRAC was founded in 1972 in Bangladesh, which was then one of the poorest countries on earth in the aftermath of its liberation war. It was founded by this man on the slide, Fazle Hassan Abed. He was working at the time as an executive for Shell Oil Company, but seeing the devastation in his home country moved him so much that, that he came to found BRAC. He's like the original social entrepreneur, and from such humble beginnings from a country that was devastated sorry, the screen just changed. From some of these humble beginnings, BRAC has really grown to be one of the largest and most effective non-governmental organizations in the world, and is the only one of its scale to have originated in the Global South. Today, we reach over 100 million people in 11 countries, and there are a number of aspects that really make us unique. Go to the next slide. So these are some of the aspects that we feel that make BRAC unique amongst the international NGOs and in the world. You know, as I mentioned, it's the only international NGO of its scale to have been founded in and led from the Global South. We reach the poorest and most excluded with a particular focus on women and girls. We provide holistic and multifaceted solutions to poverty, and you're going to hear a lot more about that from Rosina. We're designed to operate at scale. Our founder was famous for saying, small is beautiful, but big is necessary. And we do an iterative program development. This is something else that is actually fairly common in today's world. But BRAC was one of the first to take the approach of innovating something, testing it, failing fast, figuring out how it works, and then scaling. We are very business-minded, so it's an NGO, a nonprofit that is very much business-minded, and we combine social enterprises, which have a lot of impact in their own right, with the social development programs and microfinance as well. So these are some of the quotes that you see here from a number of people who've talked about BRAC, and those of you who never heard of BRAC before, Nick Kristof described us as BRAC in Bangladesh is the best aid group you've never heard of. And you can see quotes from Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, about what BRAC has been able to do that few others have been able to do on a massive scale. And with that, I'm going to turn it to my wonderful colleague, Rosina, who's going to talk about some of the work in the field. We have numerous programs running from education, the social enterprises, as I mentioned, microfinance, healthcare, agriculture, a whole range of programs. But one of our most best known programs, and also one of the most impactful, is the Ultra Poor Graduation Program. So I will turn it over to Rosina.
Thanks a lot, Donella. Being a member of BRAC family, it is always inspiring to hear the journey of BRAC, its uniqueness to operate at a scale and create impact in millions of lives globally. Thank you, Ms. Sajida Shroff, President of GlobalWE Connect, for having me here today. I'm really glad to see such a great participation from around the world. Thank you so much. I'm truly honored to be part of this event and really talk about the graduation approach, which has been pioneered by BRAC, as Donella mentioned, in Bangladesh, and expanded globally, inspired by the results of the program. So the previous slide presented by Donella explained about different interventions of BRAC, where we have seen how BRAC tried to address the poverty issue from different angles. However, in the late 90s, BRAC realized that though it had fought against poverty and worked as a catalyst for change since long, the poverty alleviation programs which were existing at that time were not adequately reaching the people facing the worst forms of poverty. So I'm talking about them who are even invisible within their community and therefore lack the social capital and sometimes face social stigma as well. So it was also observed that This group of people were bypassed by the conventional microfinance or any other development programs due to their characteristics, and they fell under the category of extreme poor population, often known as the ultra poor. So let me take you through the journey of how BRAC pioneered the graduation approach and scaled globally to create the opportunities for this ultra poor segment of population, especially for women. Next slide, please. So if we give a deeper look into the characteristics of this group, then we can see that as per the World Bank, the official definition of extreme poverty is stated with income, people living on less than $1.90 per day. But this group of people not only face the income deprivation, but also face other complexity and vulnerabilities, as they often lack access to food, poor health, lack of access to basic services or education, and they can't access government services either. So they have little or no land or productive assets and live in the remote areas. So they are disconnected from the market as well. So these group of people are disproportionately female-headed households and do not have education or skills. Thus, they can only do their casual jobs, and we know that they get less due to lack of negotiation power, which leads to the lower income. So they have a unique set of needs and challenges, we can say. And in most of the cases, this is an intergenerational phenomenon that doesn't allow the ultra poor to break the poverty trap by themselves. So as soon as we realize this fact that conventional development programs are unable to address this complex and interrelated multidimensional needs of the ultra poor, BRAC pioneered the graduation approach in 2002 and started implementing the ultra poor graduation program, which formerly known as the Targeting Ultra Poor. In Bangladesh, the program is being operated for nearly 2 decades, and I'm fortunate that I'm associated with this program almost from since the beginning. And since its inception, the program has served more than 2.1 million ultra poor households in 48 districts of Bangladesh. So currently we are operating in 39 districts in different contexts, including rural, urban, climate vulnerable areas, and hard to reach areas, and also with different targeted population, including persons with disabilities, host communities in Cox's Bazar in a fragile context, and indigenous communities, and so on. So we will have a detailed discussion on this approach, but before that, let's watch a short video which has a glimpse of the struggle of people living in extreme poverty, what I have described just now, and how BRAC is helping them to build resilience and create a sustainable pathway out of extreme poverty. So let's see the video.
Cora, there's no sound. Can we restart it and try the sound again?
Cora, can you listen us? We can't hear anything.
What we can do is add the link to this video in the chat, and we can try to replay it now, but we can also add the link to the video in the chat so that we can hear it separately as well. But let's see if we can put the sound on.
Oh, sorry, Sajida. Can you hear it now?
We can hear it now. Let's try the video.
Try the video. We can hear you now.
Is that okay?
Yes, please keep going. I think we can hear it now.
Okay, perfect. Great. Sorry about that.
Time in decades, poverty rates are rising, unraveling years of progress. Millions more people will fall into extreme poverty. They face hardships at every turn. Lack of food, clean water, education, healthcare, a steady income. The extreme poor are often isolated, cut off from society, stripped of their dignity and self-worth, more concerned about their children's next meal than planning for the future, struggling to live a life beyond one of survival. The poverty trap is real, and a big push is needed for people to lift themselves out of poverty and build resilience to avoid sliding back into the same trap. BRAC's graduation approach is one proven big push solution. At BRAC, we believe it's unjust that hundreds of millions of people live in such dire circumstances, and we're committed to helping them lift themselves out of poverty. So we tailored our approach to address their specific needs and vulnerabilities. We transfer assets, provide financial literacy and technical skills to participants so they can start their own businesses. And we offer additional support such as food stipends and healthcare. Our coach provides ongoing visits to check their basic needs are met, building their skills and confidence along the way. Many former participants have become active leaders in their communities. They advocate for access to public services. They challenge gender discrimination. They speak out against issues such as early marriage and female genital mutilation. This time-bound, adaptive, holistic approach is resource-intensive, but it works. And it's sustainable, making it more cost-effective than most interventions. And other organizations have found success through adaptation of our graduation approach, successfully graduating 3.1 million households out of extreme poverty. We are committed to creating and expanding effective solutions. BRAC has adapted the graduation approach in 14 different countries. In Bangladesh, BRAC has helped more than 2 million households graduate from extreme poverty. Building off the success of the Bangladesh program, BRAC has directly implemented and provided technical assistance on graduation in 13 additional countries, and we intend to expand further by integrating graduation into existing government programs. In the coming years, we aim to graduate another 21 million people, but we cannot do it alone. To truly move the needle on ending extreme poverty, we need governments and global actors to take the lead. Without intervention, these hardships will only become greater. But by advocating for those living in extreme poverty, we will ensure no one is left behind.
So thanks for watching and hope you have enjoyed the video. So we have seen that how graduation approach is working to eradicate extreme poverty in that video. So now let's quickly run through its unique features and how it is operating in Bangladesh. The approach is we have heard that is holistic and comprehensive in nature, and that address the multiple dimensions of poverty. One of the unique feature is it's time bound, and the interventions are integrated and carefully sequenced as well, which enable ultra-poor households to achieve sustainable livelihoods and socioeconomic resilience, and thus create a pathway out of extreme poverty. So the groundbreaking approach is not a silver bullet to solve the problem. Rather, it varies from context to context and targeted to vulnerable population. And it also ensures post-program linkages for the longer-term sustainability of the participants and closely monitor and measure the progress of the participants as well. So following the BRAC principle, the innovative graduation approach was piloted and scaled up through continuous fine-tuning, iteration, and adaptation to bring and ensure the positive impact in changing context. Next slide, please. So this is the model of how the graduation program is operating in Bangladesh. It starts with targeting, which includes geographical targeting followed by different targeting tools to select the program participants, such as participatory rural appraisal method, focus group discussion in the specific area, followed by an in-depth questionnaire to know the socioeconomic status of the family. Then the final selection took place based on some preset criteria matching the characteristics of the ultra-poor, what I have narrated in my first slide. And then proper verification took place to select the right participants. So after targeting, The program run through the following pillars, which include livelihood promotion, financial inclusion, social protection, and social empowerment. Globally, when this approach adapted to meet the local challenges and opportunities, it is essential that all pillars are included, but the specific intervention may vary from context to context. So we have seen that when these pillars are united and integrated, households are able to build greater resilience and greater preparation to shocks. So let me explain some of the key features of these pillars very quickly. So the main key features of the livelihood promotion pillars are market-driven sustainable livelihood. Additionally, it layered with technical training and skill sets of the households to respond to adaptive market situation. To minimize the risk, we don't focus only on one income source, rather advise on diversified livelihood options. In addition, the program ensures necessary inputs for the enterprise and facilitate market linkage between participants and the local traders. The financial inclusion pillar provides direct access to convenient and formal financial services accompanied with financial literacy training. So under this pillar, participants are also encouraged to build their savings behavior, which allow participants to build their resilience to cope up with any shock. During this pandemic, we have seen that how it works as a breathing space for them to address the unprecedented shocks. If I talk about the move to the social protection pillar, then these pillar mainly designed in a way so that it can prevent people falling into poverty. Generally, social protection is protective in nature as it supports the basic needs of the participants such as crisis relief, consumption support, and access to health and education who need it most. In addition to this economic and financial resilience building and social protection features, we have the ongoing life skills training, some form of coaching, mentorship, and support delivered by the program staff to build the confidence and resilience of the participants. So the social empowerment pillar mainly focuses the entire well-being of the households and promotes social inclusion and positive behavioral change among the household too. So in combination, these interdependent interventions lead to a strong outcome to the household level and ensure economic resilience, which is termed as graduation. So it includes increased assets and diversified livelihood, increased market services and social capital. It also ensures improved food security and financial services, access to government services where they were lagging behind at the time of enrollment in the program. And most importantly, it ensures the positive behavioral change at the household level, which help them to transform their lives by themselves. Next slide, please. So this is about the graduation approach and the program. Now, if we look at what results it is producing, then we will find that graduation is one of the most evidence-backed approaches to that. To check the resilience and sustainability of the participants, the rigorous randomized control trial conducted by the London School of Economics and BRAC Institute of Governance and Development together. The study had a 5-round of survey starting from 2007 till 2018. That means the same cohort of 2007 evaluated in in different years after certain intervals, like in 2009, 2011, 2014, and 2018. And the results compared with the same target group who were selected at that time but didn't go through the program intervention. That means they remained as control. So while analyzing the program impact between treatment and the control group after 4 and 7 years of program intervention, it demonstrated that 7 years after participating in BRAC's Ultra Poor Graduation Program, participants continue on an upward trajectory out of poverty. So if I highlight few results, you can see in the screen from that study, then the results showed a 37% increase in annual earning, 10% increase in consumption spending, a 9-fold increase in savings, and 2-fold increase in access to land, which is considered to the ultra poor as one of the prestigious factors. Other outcomes are a significant increase in work productivity and household assets, access to more stable and secure employment. Most importantly, one of the finding was the reduction in income inequality and builds resilience and enables faster recovery from shocks. So to the best of my knowledge, this was one of the largest RCT, which was continued by the London School of Economics at a larger stage not only to see the impact of the program, rather it also explored the question of which factor or reason helps them to escape from the poverty trap. So the survey conducted in 2018 after 10 years of program intervention, and that the results showed that a big push in respect of assets, to assets is needed to break the poverty trap. So they crossed the threshold level not only for the asset transfer, but also because of the management of the asset. That means the coaching and mentoring to participants is also important for this kind of education and create aspiration among these households. So another finding is that the graduation approach is also a cost-effective approach, as the benefit is larger than the cost. That means one-time benefit have long-term effect. So all these evidences clearly demonstrate that graduation approach builds resilience among the ultra poor households, irrespective of different contexts and targeted populations. But the recent pandemic posed a question regarding the ability of our participants to withstand the countrywide economic shock. And to find out the answer of this question, a quick study was conducted by London School of Economics and BIGD on the 2007 cohort who successfully escaped from the poverty trap, as per the earlier study done by LSE. And the study also revealed that who escape from the poverty trap are more likely have good jobs, including salaried, agriculture, and non-agricultural work, and productive assets at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And having the heterogenetic impact, the younger got comparatively more benefit to keep good jobs compared to the older participants. So the study also revealed that they are less likely experience the agony of COVID-19 induced migration, which was a worldwide common phenomena during this pandemic. So this is because they had technical knowledge on how to deal the critical situation and cope up with the crisis or any shock. And they were also able to use their saving, which is a result of developed savings behavior during the program intervention. So these results also demonstrates that graduation approach also build resilience to absorb any shock like COVID-19. So we can say that graduation approach is a shock responsive program as well. Next slide, please. So over the last 2 decades, BRAC has actually evolved this approach in Bangladesh, as well as around the world with number of implementation and partners with whom we are working. Inspired by the results in Bangladesh in 2006, TIGAP and the Ford Foundation piloted graduation approach in 8 countries through 10 projects, and the graduation approach has started to gain worldwide recognition and been adopted by governments and other NGOs, development partners in nearly 50 countries through more than 100 projects, and reached approximately 14 million individuals, which impacted over 3.1 million households so far. So a randomized control trial also conducted in 6 countries led by Nobel laureate Abhijit Banerjee and Esther Duplo to see the effectiveness and impact of this program in different contexts as well. So the result found that there is a consistency in the evidence. The results demonstrated that it also works for the extreme poor in different contexts, and the participants holds the impact on major indicators such as a significant increase in income, self-employment, savings, consumption welfare, along with, of course, the psychosocial well-being. Next slide. Globally, BRAC implemented graduation program, as I said, in different settings and vulnerable populations through BRAC International, and also provides technical assistance to government and other stakeholders for scaling it up. So till now, we have reached in 14 countries through technical assistance such as Philippines, Egypt, Tunisia, Lesotho, and many more, and as well as direct implementation such as Uganda, South Sudan, Liberia, and many other countries. So recently, BRAC has been selected as an audacious project grantee to scale graduation approach to government adoption and help 21 people globally lift themselves from extreme poverty. So this audacious grant emphasizes BRAC's transformative role in developing innovative initiatives in the global south, proving their effectiveness and scaling them for greater impact. Next slide. So let me stop here. Till now, I have talked about the target groups with whom we work, the overall graduation approach to reach them, and the impact of the graduation program to break the poverty trap, which makes them important, especially the women member of the family. So now let's hear a participant's voice to listen her journey in this program. The participant's name is Chobi, who graduated from the program long time ago, and now listen about the long-lasting impact of the program on her life from her.
নমস্কার, আমার নাম ছবি। 2006 সালের গরু পালনের সদস্য। আপনারা আমার বাড়িতে আসেন। আমার বাবার বাড়িতে আমরা খুব কষ্টে মানুষ আছি। আমরা ভালো মন্দ খেতে পেতাম, কোনো কিছু খাবার মনে হলে আমার বাবা জোটাতে পারতো। পরে আমার যখন 14 বছর বয়স হয় তখন আমার বাবা বিয়ে দেয়। ভালো জামা কাপড় পরাতে পারে না, অভাবিক মানুষ। একটা খোরাক কমে গেলে তাদের হয়তো বাসু শ্বশুর বাড়িতে আসে, আমি আবার ওই রকমই করে গেলাম। এক অভাবী খাতো, দিন মজুরি কাজ করে, একদিন করে 4 দিন করে না। এখানে আসে আমার খাই না খাই দিন যায়। এখানে আসে তখন আমার বাচ্চা হয়, বাচ্চা হয়ে তখন আমরা দুধ কিনে খাওয়াতে পারি না, তখন আমার খুব অসুখ। একটু যে বাচ্চাটা বুকের দুধ পাবে এক ফোঁটাও পাইনি। হাতের মার ময়দা গুলে ওইটুক বাচ্চাকে আমরা বাঁচাতে পারি। আমার একটা বাচ্চা মারা গেল, আমি কোনোভাবে তাকে মানুষ করতে পারলাম না, ভালো খাওয়াতে পারলাম না। আমার একটা বাচ্চা লাগে কিভাবে যার কারণে আমি ছুটি তুলে নিয়ে আসি, ছুটি খুঁজে বাড়ি বার করে আমি একটু একটু করে রাখি। সেই ছুটি জল দিয়ে নগদে চিনি কিনতে পারি না, কোথায় থেকে শুকাবো? আমার স্বামী তেমন কাজ কাম করে না। তখন ওই ছুটি জ্বালতে জ্বালতে খুঁয়ে তখন আমি ওই বাচ্চাটাকে মানুষ করি। মানুষ করে তারপর আবার একটা বাচ্চা নাই, আমাদের কাপড় চোপড় নাই, আমাদের বিছনা কাঁথা নাই, আমাদের ঘর দরজা। বহু কষ্টে ওই বাচ্চাটাকে নিয়ে আমি তখন থাকি। আকাশে যখন বৃষ্টি আসে, ঘরে বৃষ্টি হওয়ার মতন আমাদের পরিবেশ নাই, বৃষ্টি পরে কাদা হয়ে যায়। সিরা কাঁথা ন্যাকড়া টানা এগুলো দিয়ে ছালে থাকে, তুমি বৃষ্টির মধ্যে ছালেরা বসে থাকতে থাকছে। রাত থেকে টেলিং পালাম, 3 দিন পর 3 দিন টিন আনে গরুর ঘর করলাম। গরুর ঘর করে 2টা গরু পালাম, 2টা গরু এনে পুষতে 2টা গরু থেকে পালতে পালতে 8টা গরু। 8টা গরুর মধ্যে আমি 5টা গরু বিক্রি করলাম। 5টা গরু বিক্রি করে 1,35,000 টাকা খরচা করে আমি 2টা ঘর করেছি, 2টা ইটের ঘর করেছি। এখন আমার 3টা গরু আছে, 5-6টা ছাগল আছে, 15-20টা মুরগি আছে, 10টা হাঁস আছে। হাঁসের ডিম বিক্রি করি, হাঁস বিক্রি করি, মুরগির ডিম বিক্রি করি, মুরগি বিক্রি করি, মুরগির বাচ্চা বিক্রি করি। করে টাকা দিয়ে আমি 1 বিঘা জমি খাই ফেলাছি, সেখান থেকে ধান কিছু পাই। আগে খুব কষ্টের দিন ছিল, সেই দিনগুলো এখন নেই। এখন আমার অত অভাব নেই, অত কষ্ট নেই। আমি বাচ্চা কাচ্চাকে ভালো খাওয়াতে পারি, ভালো পড়াতে পারি। আমি এখন অনেক টাকা পয়সা করেছি। রাত থেকে পায়খানা পাচ্ছি, টিউবওয়েল পাচ্ছি, চিকিৎসা পাচ্ছি, গরুর ভ্যাকসিন দিছে, কৃমির ওষুধ দিছে, চিকিৎসা দিছে। রাত আমাদের যথেষ্ট ভালো করছে, এরকম উপকার আমরা কোথাও পাইনি। আমরা যখন আমাদের গরু দিল, আমরা যে কত খুশি হলাম আর কত আনন্দ হলাম। আমরা মাইকের কাছে তাদের কত আশীর্বাদ করলাম। এখন আমরা করতেছি যে আমাদের ভালো রাখিছে, আমরা ভালো আছি, তারাও ভালো থাক। তারা আরো যারা বাবার আছে তাদের দেখ, তাদের মতো হাসি খুশি তাদেরকে দেখ, আমরা এইটুকু চাই।
Yeah, so the Chobi's story reflects one of my very favorite quotes said by our founder, Sir Fazle Hassan Abed. He said, when people realize they can change their own lives, it is as if a large scale switched on. So truly graduation approach work as a means to eliminate extreme poverty through applying its innovative and structured methods to respond to the multifaceted problems of the ultra poor. But the main change or transformation of the participants' brings by themselves. So let me conclude here with this belief. Thanks to all the listeners. Happy to answer your questions at the end of the presentation. Donella, handing over it to you.
So one question that we get a lot is, what should I do? How can I help? How can I be involved? And so we include here a couple of ideas. Stay updated on BRAC's work by signing up for our newsletter. You can find the sign up there. We'll be circulating this presentation to all participants. Activate by supporting all global efforts to empower women living in poverty. As you can tell from that story, the hardships that some women face are absolutely devastating. So the more that we can do to help them, the better. And of course, I could never leave an event without suggesting that people also contribute their financial resources. You can give at bracusa.org/donate. And we are fortunate that we have our social enterprises and we have some very significant institutional donors, but the bread and butter that we live on for our innovation for programs like this and social development depends on philanthropy. So to the extent that you can support us, we would be most grateful.
Thank you to Rosina and Donella both for that, really inspiring presentation and honestly so touching. I mean, we forget sometimes about how some folks have it really so difficult, and even the basics, or what we consider the basics, are not available to them as necessities. So thank you for sharing that with us, and for really highlighting, there's opportunities for all of us to contribute and to give. We do have some questions, so let me jump into those now. Our first question is for Rosina. Rosina, when we think about BRAC's Ultra Pro graduation program, what would you say are the short and long-term impacts that it has had on the women who have participated in it? And what are the reasons in particular for its success?
Thank you for this question, Sajida. So it's really an important question. Like, we are doing a lot, but what is the impact, and what we see in the short term and long term? So if I talk about in terms of the short term impact, we may consider the signs of impact around the end of the program cycle, when the participant starts to earn from the enterprise established through program support. The confidence of the participants on their abilities starts to form, which with time increases manifold. So she also takes part in the household decision making regarding sale or purchase of assets, schooling of the children, and more. Now, though the coaching, the participant becomes, when we actually provide coaching during the home visit, the participants become aware of her rights and starts to exercise those. So the program integrates the participants in various social safety net programs and government services, which gives her the recognition of a OD citizens of the country. So all these establishes her agency to self, which works to flourish the participants in different dimensions in the long run. So now if I talk about the long run impact, so after completion of the program, the participant is seen to travel along an upward trajectory of the development, what I have mentioned in my presentation too. So the participants becomes a contributor in the community by acting as an agent of change. For example, she becomes community leader, vocal against child marriage, violence against women, dowry, and so on. So the income generating asset base of the participants increases, and the enterprise of the participants becomes so big, sometimes enough to create employment opportunity for a member of our households, as well as for the community. So thus in the long run, the participant impacts, we can say that beyond her households at the community level. And now if I come to your next questions, like what are the reasons or factors for this success, then definitely I would like to mention that there are several factors that contribute to the program success. First of all, the targeting. The program follows the meticulous targeting process, which ensures that the right right person is enrolled in the program. Secondly, the interventions are holistic, which addresses the multidimensional needs of a program participants. And thirdly, there is a adequate handholding to ensure that the participants makes informed choices, understand the significance of the program support in her development, and follows through even after handholding is over. So in addition, the program is continuously monitored and adapted the contextual changes. So in every phase, the UPG program, there is quite a bit of adaptation and enhancements. So I would say that all these led to the overall success of the program. Does it
Great.
answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely, Rosina. And I love the fact that, not only are the women educated, but they're truly empowered for themselves, for their families, but also then to become advocates in their own communities. I think that's particularly critical to note. Our next question is for Donella. Donella, you did allude to ways that people can sort of get involved and engage, but we were thinking about this, and those of us who live in the emerging economies or the other side of the world, we've heard of BRAC. It's a very familiar name. But for many people who live in the U.S., it's not a familiar name. It's not as well known, and there. So, what would you say are ways that the organization can become more well-known in the U.S., given the impact of the interventions and the massive reach that BRAC actually has?
Yes, it's a very common question that we hear a lot when people learn about us. They say, "How is it I've never heard of you before?" And so our team is actually really devoting a lot of resources to trying to make us better known. Now, it's definitely it's a very crowded market. It's hard to reach people, and I think the biggest reason why we aren't better known, and despite the size, the scale, the impact, is that our founder was an incredibly humble man. He changed the lives of so many people, but he always thought that the work should just speak for itself. And I mean, I would try to schedule, meetings or interviews with him, and he would always be reluctant to go because he'd always somehow much rather spend time with poor women than with, wealthy donors or others. So we are trying to do more on that score. Certainly, the awards that BRAC has won has been helpful. BRAC has won practically every major humanitarian development award, including the Hilton Humanitarian Prize, the World Food Prize, the ENAM Prize for Education, a whole number of awards, and that has brought attention to us as well. So it's, we are investing more of our effort now in trying to get our word out through, both earned and paid media, and hope that it will begin to build.
Excellent. Thank you. And that's it's good to hear that you're being proactive, but it's also, I think, what you said there and remind everybody about all the accolades that BRAC has received are particularly critical. Rosina, the next question is for you. So you talked about what happens when families graduate from the program. You talked about that in your previous response. What happens when families do not graduate from the program?
Yeah, that's a good question, too. In fact, if a household, most of the people graduates, but when you see that if a household is slow in achieving any of the criteria, as I said, that we measure graduation based on some criteria. So the program provides coaching, mentoring, and help them to prepare a plan for achieving those criteria within the stipulated time. So still there can be a small number of ultra-poor households who cannot graduate due to personal capacity, family composition sometimes, and so on, but they are on track, I would say, and slowly progressing to be graduate later. But despite all these, there is a possibility what you are asking that an insignificant number of participants may fall back into poverty in the long run due to what we have witnessed, that due to the massive health shocks, loss of assets, and severe cases of natural disaster sometimes, and so on. So generally, we go back to a previous program implemented areas after every 3 to 4 years, considering different socioeconomic aspects to implement another round of the program. So thus the former participants who has fallen into poverty in that area may get enrolled into the program again through the participant selection process. So according to our experience, as I have mentioned, the percentage of participants falling back after graduation is very, very low. Even if we can sometimes convert it as a percentage. So further to that, such participants remaining out of program coverage in the next iteration in even rare
So, I mean, I think it's really very powerful that not only are you guys obviously making a difference to these people and in terms of the program and the learning and the empowerment that you get, but you really are trying to employ a no one left behind policy in terms of your follow-up and your hand-holding. And I think that's incredibly impressive given the depth and breadth of you know what you're trying to do and also the people you're trying to serve. Danella, when you think about BRAC overall, not just BRAC USA, but BRAC overall, what do you think is the biggest challenge that BRAC is facing going forward? You know, funding, internal, something else?
So I would say that the biggest challenge for everyone, I think, in the nonprofit sector is that unlike the for-profit sector, where you can develop an ongoing revenue stream from a customer or a client base, one that's pretty steady, for those of us who are trying to make social change, the funding streams tend to be erratic and unpredictable. So like all of our grants take an enormous amount of time and effort. And even if they're only 1 year long, you can spend, 3 months of that just doing reporting and paperwork and such. And individual projects can make a big difference for those involved, but trying to have impact at scale, which is really the aim of BRAC, is very challenging to do with an unpredictable funding stream. Now, our work in Bangladesh is all designed around scale, mainly because we have the social enterprises, which I could share a little more about as well. And so we can do the kind of innovative and sustained work that's required to have impact at scale. We're really still striving to replicate that in our other countries because we don't have quite the steady stream of those unrestricted funds that are really necessary to really make change at scale.
That's interesting. Actually, my next question was going to be that, you'd mentioned in your presentation that BRAC has a number of social enterprises. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of them and about the approach that you take with the social enterprises?
Yes, absolutely. The social enterprises are one of my favorite aspects about BRAC and one of the things that really attracted me to it as a Harvard Business School grad. So every one of the social enterprises is all designed around a problem of poverty. So there's some problem of poverty that it's aimed to get at, and they have impact in and of themselves on people in poverty. But they're all designed to be self-sustaining at minimum and profit-making at best. So the one that's probably the easiest to understand is the BRAC Dairy. So after years of doing microfinance in the rural areas of the country in Bangladesh, our founder Abed could see that the women had cows that were producing excess milk because they were healthier cows, they had more money, but there was nowhere to sell it. So he looked at what they were selling it in the rural areas, and he looked at what he was paying for it in Dhaka, the capital city, and he said, here's a market opportunity. So they set up 8 chilling plants around the country, started buying from the poor women farmers and selling it into the capital city. And it's become a very big business. It's attracted a lot of competition and has improved nutrition in the country. So it's a real success story, and it generates a very nice profit now. And they've gone into all sorts of different dairy products, including yogurts and ice creams and all sorts of things. The other one is that is probably the best known is our retail stores. We have retail stores called Arong. Actually, the dairy is now called Arong Dairy as well, AARONG. And Arong, you can actually buy products from online in the US now as well. So that's another social enterprise. It's a very large social enterprise where we have retail stores all throughout the capital city and environs around there. I think there are 25 or so outlets right now. It's like the Macy's of Bangladesh. And so anytime anyone goes to Bangladesh, you have to go to Arong, and they have beautiful fabrics and saris and blankets and crafts and all sourced from poor women in rural areas and all done very responsibly. They'll buy, in most places retail, they buy only on consignment, so the women only get paid once the product is sold. BRAC pays them immediately, Arong pays them immediately. So a number of very responsible policies. And it similarly, it also preserved all these wonderful historical artifacts that these women were creating. And as you know, again, it kicks off a very nice profit that we can plow into our social development programs, and at the same time has tremendous social impact at the same time.
Thank you so much, Daniela. And to be honest, I have been to Iran in Dhaka when I was in Bangladesh a few years ago, and I was blown away by the quality and the range and just the beauty of everything that I saw. I mean, you know, the nature, the level of detail and everything. So, I mean, you know, if that's an example of the social enterprise that, you know, BRAC is engaged in, it's one that truly has very far-reaching and impactful. And, you know, for those of us who enjoy the beauties of silk and so forth, I mean, I really came away with too much for my bags to carry home. So it was, it was just a fun experience. So we'll move on from there into something a little bit more serious. So Rosina, can you share with us the most memorable experience you have, as well as perhaps the greatest challenge that you might have faced working with the Ultra Pro graduation program?
Sure, I would love to. In fact, as I said earlier as well, that I'm involved with this program almost from the beginning. So I got the opportunity to see the program evolved over the time, and the journey of this program from its starts to its current state is a very enriching experience for me. So I have seen participants transforming from a hopeless state to a confident contributor in the society through this program. So the interaction with these participants and getting a glimpse of their life both before and after the graduation is really satisfying and inspiring, in the sense that people can achieve anything with a little bit of support and encouragement. So I have the opportunity to work in different countries for program design, where I was able to interact with the Ultra Pro people in different socioeconomic contexts as well. So what I understood, that they all have the same aspiration to break out the poverty trap and leave a better world for the next generation. So seeing the impact of the program directly in the life of a participant is a once in a lifetime experience for me. So now come to the challenges. If I focus on that, then I would say that the UPG program is complex, and consequently, its adaptation to various contexts require careful consideration of multidimensional factors, and still there remains a lot to be covered. And the challenges is how to make sure that no one is left behind. So the only strategy is to scale the approach globally. Therefore, a strong advocacy and forming partnerships with governments across the globe is necessary, which is not an easy task. So another challenge I can say that due to the recent pandemic, there is increased number of ultra poor who were earlier not in the segment before. So we all need to work together to recover from this pandemic situation.
Absolutely. And actually, Rosina, that brings us to a question. When we think about sort of what has to happen going forward with the pandemic, which has definitely, you know, affected people so much more, and as you said, increased the level of poverty and the number of ultra poor. So what are some of the things that our attendees should know about the resources that it takes to bring a family out of poverty and create generational wealth?
Well, great. I think at this is following my discussion so far, it is clear that the program needs to provide longer period, comprehensive and supervised support to the participants. So on top of that, the program needs to be constantly monitored for context suitability. So both the comprehensiveness of the program and the necessity to remain appropriate to the context requires allocation of necessary resources, that must say. So in our experience, given the current design of the program in Bangladesh, it costs around USD like 380 to 400 approximately per participants for the 2-year program cycle period.
I see. Thank you so much. That makes it much clearer. So this question is for Danella, our next one. So BRAC serves as a model for others as the largest NGO founded in the Global South. In recent years, there's been more and more attention paid to BRAC by the media, corporate, and other nonprofit entities. You know, when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion efforts, how do you think that the global development sector can grow and evolve when we think about, using BRAC as a model?
So this is a very, very important and very timely topic that is really being considered. And there's a lot of conversation about localizing aid and decolonizing aid, because there is a sense that the U.S. government aid, those tend to go, like most of the grants that the U.S. government makes, goes to the 10 large, they call them the Beltway bandits, who then do work with local organizations, but that rather than really build up the local organizations, it tends to mean that the money doesn't do as much good on the ground as it possibly could. So there's a big effort, and I'm really excited about Samantha Powers heading up USAID now, because she has a big localization agenda. And it's very hard to do, but to the extent that I think that the global northern donors, the US government, the Canadian government, UK, Europe, can really start to get to know more local organizations and really begin to fund them directly, as opposed to having to go through US based, and that the challenge there is that they make it very hard. It's very bureaucratic. There are all kinds of requirements and whatnot, and but to the extent that I think the aid sector can really be focused more on helping build the capacity of local organizations on the ground like BRAC, and enable organizations like BRAC to thrive and grow, I think that is what's really needed.
Thanks, Danella, for that. That's very comprehensive. And unfortunately, that is the reality, right? We have the larger organizations who often get the bigger piece of the funding, but it's in organizations like BRAC that really do have the greater impact. So we hope that they can continue to support and grow as we move forward. So we're almost at the end of our moderated Q&A, and we just wanted to ask you both one more question before we take questions from the attendees. And there are a lot in the chat function, as we've been seeing. So I'd like to ask you both, what is one takeaway that you would like attendees of this program to have about the work of BRAC, and what BRAC is doing to create opportunities for women in poverty? So Rosina, let's start with you.
Thank you, Sajida. So I would like to, in fact, mention the two takeaways instead of one, as it's related with each other. So firstly, I would say targeting. The Altapur graduation program was born from the lesson that if we want to reach the extreme poor, it is not enough to have larger scale, widely accessible program. The Altapur are so marginalized and excluded that you have to specifically target them. We see the same problem with many large scale government social protection programs that are supposedly for everyone, but unless you specifically seek out the most vulnerable, they are left behind. So this is the first thing I would like to mention. And the secondly, being holistic. So to address poverty, it is not enough to address one aspect of poverty like income or education. Especially for extreme poverty, you have to look at it holistically, from food insecurity to financial exclusion to social exclusion to low skills. So if you don't address the full spectrum of poverty, one of these will hold them back and they will remain in the poverty trap forever. So this is so from my end.
Thank you so much, Rosina. That's actually very comprehensive, but also very telling. So thank you. Danella, your takeaway. Please.
Yes, and I would like to echo something that Rosina said earlier in her presentation. I think never underestimate the power of hope. But we have found that just by enabling women to see that they actually have the ability to change, they have power over their lives, that they can be agents of their own change, that it's amazing what they can do and then what they do.
Excellent. Thank you both. So we really appreciate you both being here and responding to these questions that we as a team from GlobalWE have put together. We have, as I said, mentioned, we have a number of questions from the audience. So before I turn it over to Barbara, who's going to take us through the questions from the audience, I'd like to request that we take a screenshot of everybody that's here. So if you're comfortable having your picture taken, please put on your video, put on your cameras, and we'll take a couple of screenshots. Which we will post on social media. So if you're not comfortable with it being posted, please don't turn on your camera. but we hope that you will. And we're going to take a couple because there's multiple screens. So just let me know when you're ready. Everybody ready? We'll go 1, 2, 3. 1 second here. Okay, and then we'll just do another one. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Great, thank you so much. Barbara, over to you for the question.
Thank you, Sajida, and thank you all for having such great questions. We received several in the chat. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is, how do you identify the government and other services that you can connect participants in this program to? I guess this would be directed toward Rosina. And how do you ensure cooperation and recognition from the government agencies and other providers that would be involved in this relationship?
Thank you, Barbara. So yes, what I have mentioned just a few minutes before that, if we want to really expand our coverage and address the multidimensional needs of the ultra poor segment of population to address the SDGs, there is no other option that mainstream with the government social protection programs, and that's really a little bit challenging task as well. So, but a lot of studies showed that if we give some support which is incremental, address the needs of the consumption and other supports, but that doesn't help them to come out from the poverty level. So we really need to work on the social protection programs of government and transform them to the productive inclusion. So there is no other way to do that. But yes, that's true. So we have to sensitize the government and also ensure the right allocation of the resources, and all partners should come together. And that's a really little bit challenging task as well, but we don't have any other option to do so.
Thank you very much. Another question that I think will stick with you. Can you comment on the situation with child marriage in Bangladesh and how BRAC is making a difference in that regard?
Yeah, sure. Child marriage, over the time, it has reduced, but as we all know that during the pandemic, their school dropout has, as the school were closed, and then violence against women has also increased in the community, as well as the children who were sitting idle. Previously, they were in the school, so but due to the closure of the school, they are at the home, and their parents are actually making the early marriage. So that's actually increased during this pandemic. I think this is not only the phenomenon of Bangladesh, but it's a phenomenon of the other countries as well. So where we know that we have a different program, a community empowerment program, we have a HRLS program, and we have a gender diversity program as well. So they all are working together to address these challenges. And as now schools are open, so we are conscious to and we are consciously working to bring this especially the girls child back to the school, and also creating awareness and also monitoring that how they are going to school now. And also as even in my presentation, I have mentioned that when these ultra poor participants graduate, they they contribute to the community as well. They work as a voice of the community. So we have a village social solidarity committee in the village, which we formed during the program, and that they also worked as a change maker, and they also act not to happen this in the field, the child marriage and other things. So by this way, from the organization, we have a different department, and we also integrated with the other departments and working together, and as well as how we build the capacity of the community. They also act as agents to protect this. And in addition, if Donala, you would like to add something with me.
No, that's very comprehensive.
Thank you very much. Yes, we really appreciate that thorough and thoughtful response. Another question, which one or both of you may be able to answer, is how women are held accountable for microfinance loans, and what if groups receive loans or only individuals?
So I can take that, and I'll let Rosina correct me if I get anything wrong. How's that? And the microfinance, BRAC really follows the traditional microfinance role, which is doing it in groups, but it's all individual liability. It's not group liability, because we have found that it can be difficult for the groups to feel like they have to be, ensuring that their neighbors or their other groups make good on their loans, because they don't know, what it can fracture the group. So it's individual liability only, but it's done in groups mainly because it's just more cost effective. Microfinance is a very high cost method of finance, because the loans are all very, very small, and that's why banks tend to want very large loans, and people who just need a small loan to, buy a piece of equipment or a new car or a truck, often need a loan. And then the loan officers, meet with the groups every, periodically. I don't think it's weekly anymore, and actually it's been great during the pandemic that a lot of it has gone more digital, so that they're able to connect with the microfinance borrowers using our mobile money tool called bCash. Does that answer your question?
It sounds responsive. Rosina, did you want to mention anything else, or is that, I felt like she gave a pretty comprehensive answer, so.
Yep.
Great, excellent. So I'm going to read off one more question, and then we have a raised hand from a member of the audience. So the next written question is, what are the incentives for funding agencies such as companies to help with this initiative? Is it to improve local economies, to provide local investments in giving people access to local markets? We'd love, the person would love some more explanation there. Thank you.
For companies or governments? I guess the question is for companies.
It was companies, but if you have something to share with governments too, maybe stakeholders in the private sector.
Yeah, and I suppose at least I think maybe my answer would actually be pretty consistent for both. Now that I think of it, they're at the end of the day, the only thing that I think is really going to raise people out of poverty is economic development. If you have a whole lot of people, particularly women, who are just completely left behind and destitute, you will never be able, as a country, you will never be able to actually have, like we have in the developed world, the income tax base and property tax base and all of that, to actually have appropriate social protection as a society, as a community, as a country. And so actually reaching out to the very, very poorest not only is the right thing to do, the equitable thing to do, but it also is smart business-wise, because for companies, there are more customers for their products, and for governments, it will build an economy from which they can actually, as we do in the U.S., where tax rates are a little higher on people who make more money than they are in lower. There are social protections like in the U.S., like Medicaid and other types of we have Social Security. So to become a really developed country, you really need to think about the poorest people in your country.
Thank you, Danella. Rosina, would you like to add anything?
I think that's perfect.
Excellent. Okay, we have one raised hand from the audience. Thank you to all who submitted their questions, their written questions, and for any who submitted questions we didn't get to, we will share them with the speakers. Miss Arundhati Rai, if you are still there, if you'd like to ask your question, please. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm Arundhati Rai from Kolkata, India. And since Bangladesh is our neighbor, and I've visited Bangladesh very often, I don't know when Rosina mentions about that little account of the lady, right? Whether one's life today in the 21st century, when everybody has a smartphone and a television at home, at least in India, I can vouch for that. They wear jeans, even in the villages, which just shows how conscious they are. of their material existence. Now, you mentioned about cows bringing in prosperity. I wasn't quite able to appreciate that aspect of development, because what we do in India is, by the way, my initial question was, is BRAC involved in India? Do you have programs in India as well? BRAC?
Directly, I'm sorry, directly not, but we provided technical assistance to Bandhan to adapt this model in West
Okay.
Bengal in
Okay.
2006 and trickle up as well. Yes,
Because what
and
we
they are
have
scaling up this.
Right.
Yes.
What we have done, I think, again, this is thanks to Irish Christian missionary effort, right? The rainbow, excuse me, the rainbow, 1 billion rising, that's their project called. And I've seen it grow from day one. And it started growing from city schools. Now it's spread its tentacles all over the villages. Every school's terrace, which was going waste because children are going home early, there's so much of space. Street children virtually picked up from the Howrah station, from anywhere on the street, are picked up and made to reside there on the terrace, and they've got fans and lights and all the comfort. Don't think we've just thrown them on the floor, not at all. And today, where I feel about this 1 billion rising project gives me so much satisfaction, because now that with COVID, everything is shut and closed, it's so wonderful to see these children using our school premises, whether it's a concert hall or, the hall for their social programs, etc. And finally, what is the end result of this 1 billion rising? That's my question. And here I would like to say the emphasis is on education, certainly they reside there, and 2, vocational training. And most of them are going out into society and are able to do something. So there's a lot of, I feel dignity in their act, in their work. And I think that's how we need to look at them, not to just leave it at that stage of cows and goats, because I feel that is not enough.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Let's have the speakers answer the question. Thank you. And then we'll have a couple of announcements. Thank you.
So thank you, Arundhati. You rightly pointed out that yes, they need ultra poor, especially needs a lot of support, as we mentioned in our presentation too, that they need a comprehensive support. So in terms of the assets, we not only provide cow or goats, so we actually they are involved in a lot of non-traditional income generating activities too. So they engaged with some small trades and agriculture and horticulture nursery. And we not only look at to build their asset base, but how to integrate them in the social, how to make the social integration. And also we also take care of the education of their children, because one of the thing I have mentioned in my presentation that there is the intergenerational impact of this program too. So we also try to cover that aspects as well. Yeah, Tonala, over to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And with that, we'd like to say a couple of concluding remarks. So thanks again to everyone for joining today's discussion. It was a fascinating discussion, and we learned a lot about the work that BRAC is doing, as well as BRAC USA. And we are definitely excited to hear more about the work being done to support women and girls around the world. And I would like to encourage everyone to continue to follow what BRAC is doing by signing up for their listserv and going onto their website, as well as following what GlobalWE is doing. And we have a new series now with this launch today. So we look forward to having more events featuring organizations like BRAC and BRAC USA. So if you have a suggestion for an organization that you would like to see featured, or you're aware of one, or you work for one, please don't hesitate to contact us. Go to our website, harvardglobalwe.org, or contact me, Barbara Moreno-Paschal, at connect@harvardglobalwe.org. So we thank you very much, and hope that you can join us for future programs. And thank you to all the speakers and to GlobalWE President Sajid Ashraf for moderating today's excellent discussion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank
And on behalf of
you.
GlobalWE, thank you so much to
Thank you,
Donella
everyone.
and to Rosina, and also to Cora, who really helped us in the background. And a very special gratitude to Barbara and her team at GlobalWE Connect for putting this Fireside Chat series together. We look forward to some really exciting chats as we go forward. And of course, thank you to the GlobalWE board members who are here today. Thanks, everyone. Stay well and stay happy. Team, if you can